I was never supposed to be the rich one in the family. That title belonged to my younger sister, Myra, the golden child, the class topper, the girl with a 4.2 GPA who got into every top university she applied to. I was just Unide, 34, quiet, a little awkward in large gatherings, and far more comfortable reading quarterly reports than chatting about fashion trends or planning extravagant weddings. I work in private equity, but you wouldn't know it from looking at me. I wear the same watch I've had since university, drive a 10-year-old Honda Civic, and live in a house I paid off in cash 2 years ago. No debt, no drama, no desire to show off. That's probably why no one in my family really understood what I do, and I never corrected them. They thought I worked in some kind of finance thing. My mother once told her friend that I was a bank teller or something like that. I just smiled and nodded. It was easier than explaining leveraged buyouts and silent partnerships, especially since Myra absorbed all the attention anyway. She always had. Even when we were children, it was like I was the backup sibling, the spare. She got piano lessons, dance recitals, private tutoring. I was told to be quiet during her practice sessions. If she wanted something, the whole house revolved around getting it for her. If I needed help with school or life, or anything really, I got a pat on the back and a, "You'll figure it out." I'm not bitter. At least I wasn't. For most of my life, I kept my head down, worked hard, and made peace with the fact that my parents, especially my mother, saw Myra as the bright, shining hope of the family. They called her our little star, even when we were well into our 20s. And Myra played the part flawlessly, smiling, charming, and always just helpless enough to need rescuing by someone else's checkbook. The thing is, behind the glitter and Instagram filters, Myra has no idea how to manage money, relationships, or really anything, if I'm being honest. She's burned through more jobs than I can count, bounced between luxury apartments she couldn't afford, and dated a carousel of wealthy men who always seemed to disappear the second she brought up marriage. That's probably why, when she finally found a man who proposed, and more importantly, could tolerate her long enough to actually stay, my entire family practically lost their mind with excitement. It was as if Myra had finally secured her happily ever after, and we were all expected to be extras in the fairy tale. And for a while, I played along. I showed up to the engagement party, brought a thoughtful and admittedly expensive gift, smiled through the toasts, and listened to Myra gush about the Dubai honeymoon, the custom designer gown, and the historic wedding hall they had booked for the venue. She dropped numbers like confetti. 3 lakh rupees for the dress, 80,000 for the flowers, 60,000 for the calligrapher flying in from Lahore just to write the invitations by hand. Every detail was ridiculous. Every rupee spent with someone else's, mostly our parents. But the real shock came 1 week after that party, when Myra invited me to lunch. We met at a trendy little cafe downtown, the kind with overpriced avocado toast and baristas who looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine. I should have known something was up when she offered to pay. Myra never offers to pay. She ordered some elaborate latte I'd never heard of, looked at me with that practiced smile she always used when she wanted something, and said, "So, I've been thinking. You're doing really well, right?" I blinked. I'm doing fine. Yeah. No, I mean really well. Like, you have your own house, no student debt. You travel a lot. You're probably doing great with investments, right? I gave her a careful smile. I live within my means. That's all. She laughed as though I'd said something adorable. That's such a you thing to say. So humble. I waited. I already knew what was coming. I just didn't know how large the ask would be. She leaned in and lowered her voice as though we were sharing state secrets. "So, listen, I'm a little over budget on the wedding. Just by a tiny bit. Okay, more than a bit. 50,000 to be exact." I nearly choked on my water. "You're over budget by 50,000? She waved it off like it was pocket change. "It's not that bad. We had to upgrade the catering because Bilal's family are major foodies. And I found this designer in Dubai who's doing the bridesmaid dresses. Trust me, it's a vibe. But anyway, I was hoping you could help." "Help how?" I asked, though I already knew. She smiled, sweet and poisonous. "Cover the difference. Just the 50,000. I mean, it's nothing to someone like you, right? You probably made that in dividends last quarter." I sat back, stunned. "You're asking me to give you 50,000? Not give, she corrected quickly. Just pay for the wedding. It's a one-time thing. You be making sure your only sister has the day of her dreams. And honestly, it would mean so much to Amy and Abba. They're kind of maxed out, but we all know you're the one who's doing the best. I stared at her. This wasn't just a bad ask. It was an entitled one. There was no gratitude in her voice, no acknowledgement of how massive that number was. She genuinely thought I'd just hand it over like I was an ATM. I took a breath. Myra, I love you, but I'm not funding a 50,000 rupee shortfall for a wedding. That's not happening. Her smile faltered for just a second, then the performance kicked back in. Wow. Okay, I guess I'll just tell Bilal we have to cancel the signature desserts and cut the live Nash singer. Thanks for nothing. I didn't say I wouldn't help at all. I offered carefully. But 50 grand? Come on, that's not reasonable. She stood up just like that, didn't even finish her latte. Fine, forget it. I'll figure out myself. Just remember this when the time comes. And with that cryptic line, she walked out. I wish I could say I forgot about it. Chalked it up to Myra being Myra. But something about the way she said it, that odd emphasis on the time, nagged at me. It was a threat disguised as drama. And in my family, drama has a way of turning nuclear. 2 weeks later, I got a text from her. Dinner at my place. Just us. Super chill. Let's clear the air. Smiling emoji. I knew I shouldn't go. I went anyway. And the moment I stepped into her apartment, I knew I'd made a mistake. Because it wasn't just us. 3 men in suits were already seated at the table, each with a stack of paperwork. Myra walked out of the kitchen holding a glass of juice, wearing that same sweet smile she always used when she was about to light someone's world on fire. She raised her glass and said, "Welcome, Junaid. Let's talk options." And that was the beginning of the end. I stood there in the doorway, not moving. Something about the scene. 3 men in tailored suits, documents spread out like a contract negotiation, and Myra smiling as though she were hosting a dinner party, felt very, very off. My gut tightened. This wasn't a super chill dinner. This was a setup, and I was the only one who hadn't received the memo. "You all right, Junaid?" Myra asked sweetly, motioning to the seat across from the lawyers. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Didn't realize dinner now included legal counsel. I said, "Not sitting down." She laughed. "Oh, don't be dramatic. It's just a little paperwork. Go on, sit. You want something to drink?" "I'll take answers," I said flatly, my voice low. That made her smile freeze for half a second. Just a flicker, but I caught it. The tallest of 3 men stood and extended a hand. "Mr. Junaid, my name is Faisal Raza. I represent your sister and her fiancé in a matter of financial arbitration. Please, if you'll join us, I can walk you through the situation." "No need," I said. "My sister already walked me through at lunch. She wants money." I said no. End of story. Faisal didn't flinch. "Respectfully, I believe you'll want to see the documents." "And why would that be?" I asked, folding my arms. Myra let out a little sigh and took a sip of her juice. "Because you made a promise, Junaid." "What promise?" She turned to the lawyer and gestured, showing the agreement. Faisal opened a folder and slid a few sheets toward me. I stepped forward cautiously and glanced down. The heading read, "Binding Pledge of Familial Contribution." It was formatted like a contract, complete with my name, address, and a digital signature I had never seen before. I narrowed my eyes. "What is this?" Myra's voice was syrupy sweet. "It's the email you sent Amy 2 months ago, saying you'd help out with my wedding however you could. I had it printed, and we added some formatting for clarity. It's been no tourist." My jaw clenched. "You printed my email and turned it into a fake contract." "Not fake," she snapped, suddenly dropping the cutesy act. "Legally persuasive. And if you don't agree to honor it, we can escalate." I shook my head in disbelief. "Are you serious right now?" Faisal stepped in again. "Mr. Junaid, we're not here to be adversarial. Our intention is to reach an amicable solution. Your sister has already made substantial non-refundable payments based on the expectation of your financial support. She's asking for follow-through. She's asking for extortion. I snapped. You don't get to turn a vague, good faith offer into a $50,000 invoice. The second lawyer, a shorter man with glasses, spoke up. We're prepared to file a claim for promissory estoppel that includes potential damages and losses if she's forced to downsize or cancel. I stared at Myra. You're threatening a lawsuit over a wedding. She gave me a pitying look. You left me no choice, Junaid. This is my one special day. I'm not asking you to buy me a house or anything crazy. I just need your help, and you're acting like I'm a criminal. No, you're acting like one, I said, voice low and tight. You forged a contract and hired a legal team to trap me. There was a pause. Then Myra shrugged, turning to the lawyers with a little grin. He always did like playing victim. That was the moment something in me shifted. I don't know exactly what it was. Maybe it was the sheer nerve of being ambushed like this. Maybe it was seeing the familiar smugness on her face. The same look she wore as a child whenever she got away with something. Whatever it was, the anger wasn't loud. It was quiet, controlled, cold. I picked up the fake contract, skimmed it again, then looked directly at Faisal. So let me get this straight. Your case hinges on a casual email that said I'd help out. Yes. With no specific amount listed, no terms, no timeline. Correct. And you believe that would hold up in court? He didn't answer, but the smirk on Myra's face said everything. I'm not signing anything, I said calmly, placing the papers back down. And if you send me anything else like this, I'll file a harassment claim. Myra's smile returned, but this time it was icy. I figured you'd say that, which is why I brought backup. She turned toward the hallway and called out, Amy, you can come in now. I blinked. Wait, what? Footsteps. Then our mother stepped into the room, arms crossed, expression tight. Not angry, not sad, just disappointed. The kind of look that still hits you like a punch, even when you're a grown man. Junaid, she said quietly, this isn't how we raised you. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. You promised to support your sister, she went on. We all did. Your father and I have put everything we could into this wedding. Maxed out credit cards, pulled from our savings. And Myra has done everything she can to make this day beautiful. Now you're trying to back out over money. I didn't promise 50 grand. I said, trying to stay calm. That was never the deal. Amy shook her head slowly. You make more than your father and I combined. This isn't going to ruin you. It's not about that. I snapped. It's the principle. You don't ambush family with lawyers over an imaginary promise. Myra sighed dramatically. This is why I didn't want to involve him. He always makes things so difficult. I make things difficult? I laughed bitter. You faked a contract, weaponized an email, and now you're trying to shame me with Amy in a room like we're back in school. The third lawyer, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Mr. Junaid, if I may. You may not, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. This isn't a legal matter. It's a family one, or at least it used to be. Amy stepped forward, placing a hand on my arm. Please, Junaid, just sign it. Let's not turn this into a scandal. I stared at her hand, then met her eyes. So that's what this is about. Saving face. There was a long silence. No one moved. Then Myra, voice soft and venomous, leaned in and whispered, Sign it, or I'll ruin you. My eyes narrowed. Excuse me? She didn't blink. I know things, Junaid. I know about your real income, your real estate holdings, the trust, the business under your wife's name. All of it. My stomach dropped. Myra smiled like a cat who had just caught a canary. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? You've been hiding behind that humble accountant act for years. But I talked to people. I made calls. You've got enough skeletons in your financial closet to bury you if I go public. And there it was. Not a request, not even a demand, a full-blown threat. I stood still for a long moment. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from fury. Controlled, cold, familiar. I took a deep breath. Okay. Myra blinked. Okay, what? I walked toward the door, hand already reaching for my phone. I'm calling my lawyer. She laughed. What, to fight back? No, I said calmly. To bring my wife. For the first time all evening, Myra looked confused. Your wife? I opened the door. She'll explain everything. And just as I stepped into the hallway, a soft voice behind me said, Actually, I'm already here. Myra turned around, and her jaw dropped, because standing behind her, holding her own folder of documents and wearing a blazer that screamed federal-level authority, was the woman I had married in secret 2 years ago. She gave Myra a nod and said, Let's talk options. And just like that, everything changed. You ever watch someone's world tilt in real time? Like a painting that slowly starts to slide off the wall. Except they can't stop it, and they realize too late that what's crashing isn't the painting, but the wall itself. That was Myra. Her smirk disappeared so fast it looked as though it had been yanked off her face. She took one step back, glass still clutched in her hand, blinking as if she weren't sure she was awake. My wife stepped into the room, calm as a surgeon before procedure. Her name is Sanaa, and I'll say this. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't gloat. She doesn't threaten. She documents. And she prepares. We had met 6 years ago when she was doing forensic accounting for a firm that audited one of the companies I had quietly invested in. One conversation turned into two. Two turned into coffee. And coffee turned into a bond that wasn't built on grand gestures or fireworks. It was built on mutual respect and private trust. Sanaa is sharp, meticulous, and perhaps the only person who fully understands what I do. When we got married at a simple Nika ceremony 2 years ago, we didn't tell my family. It wasn't secrecy, it was strategy. I knew how my family operated. Myra especially. The less they knew, the less they could use. Sanaa agreed. Now she was standing in front of Myra, looking perfectly composed, as though this entire ambush had been on our calendar. Not theirs. Sanaa, Amy whispered, eyes wide. You're married, did you nod? Yes, she said, nodding once. For 2 years. Amy's hand shot to her chest, as though she had just witnessed a crime. 2 years. You never told us. I stepped back into the room, letting the door swing shut behind me. And based on today, do you think we should have? Myra's mouth opened, then closed. Then she turned sharply toward the lawyers. What is she doing here? Sanaa ignored her and addressed the 3 men directly. Which one of you prepared this document? Faisal cleared his throat. That would be me. Good, Sanaa said, flipping open her folder. Because I like to know which jurisdiction you believe allows a contract to be formed without offer, acceptance, consideration, or clear terms, and no taris off an email, no less. Faisal bristled. Ma'am, this isn't a formal courtroom. We're here to mediate. No, you're here under false pretenses to pressure my husband into surrendering a large sum of money under the threat of reputational damage. That's coercion. A civil court would eat this alive. But you already knew that, didn't you? Myra's cheeks flushed, her eyes darting between Sanaa and me, as though she were trying to recalculate a problem that suddenly had far more variables than she had expected. Junaid, she snapped. Why would you bring her into this? Sanaa turned to her slowly and without a trace of emotion. Because you try to threaten my husband with lies, forge documents, and imply blackmail. That makes it our problem. Myra's voice cracked. You think you can just barge into my private meeting? Sanaa held up a hand, not aggressively, not with anger, just a simple, precise movement. Enough. The room fell silent. Then in a quiet voice she asked, You said you'd ruin him. How? Myra blinked. Excuse me. You told Junaid you'd ruin him. What was your plan? Leak false financials? Pretend you know something you don't? Try to discredit a man who is legally protected by 6 privacy layers and multiple holding companies? Please enlighten me. Myra swallowed. Her facade was cracking fast. I was bluffing. It was just a scare tactic. That's not what you said 5 minutes ago. Amy finally spoke again, still frozen near the doorway. Myra, what is going on? Myra rounded on her. He's the one hiding things, Amy. He's been playing all of us for years. He let us believe he was just some quiet finance guy while he was sitting on God knows how much money. He let us go into debt for this wedding while he sat there with a paid-off house and a secret wife, like he's better than all of us. I blinked, and that was the moment I saw it for what it truly was. This wasn't about money. Not really. This was about control, about the illusion of hierarchy. Myra had always been a favorite, the chosen one, the daughter my parents had built their lives around. And I was supposed to orbit her, to support, to clap, to fund her dreams without question. The fact that I had quietly built a life, a successful one, without her, without my family knowing, was the ultimate betrayal in her eyes. Not because it hurt her, but because it threatened her place at the top. Sanaa stepped forward and placed a printed packet in front of Faisal. Here is a summary of Junaid's financials, redacted for legal safety. Note the asset protection clauses, the irrevocable trusts, and the structures that make your little lawsuit deeply inadvisable. Faisal picked it up with slightly shaking fingers. Sanaa turned to Myra. This was your last shot at manipulating him. You should have spent it better. Myra's eyes welled up, and for a split second, I thought she might actually apologize, that maybe the weight of what she had tried to pull was finally sinking in. But instead, she turned on me. You lied to me, she spat. You let me humiliate myself. You let me think I could count on you. And now you're parading your lawyer wife in here like some gotcha moment. I stare at her, feeling something unfamiliar twist in my chest. It wasn't just betrayal. It was grief. Grief for the idea of family I had been clinging to for far too long. Grief for the brother I had tried to be. You never tried to count on me, I said softly. You tried to use me. And the moment I said no, you didn't try to talk. You brought lawyers. You forged papers. You weaponized Amy. I was desperate, she shouted. I deserve a beautiful wedding. You deserve respect, I said. But you lost mine a long time ago. Then I turned to Amy. And you let this happen. You backed her. You didn't even ask me what was true. You just assumed I owed her something. As though I'm not your son. As though I'm just a resource. Amy looked as though she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Perhaps she finally realized that something had shifted, that the dynamic, the unspoken rule of Myra first, wasn't just breaking. It had broken. I stepped back toward the door and took Sanaa's hand. We're leaving. Myra screamed behind me. Actually screamed. You're going to regret this, Junaid. I swear to God, you'll regret this. Sanaa paused just long enough to glance over her shoulder and say, You should stop making threats. We record everything. And then we walked out. But it wasn't over, because the next day, Myra doubled down. That night, I didn't sleep. Sanaa and I sat at the kitchen table going through everything. We weren't worried legally. We were covered 6 ways from Sunday. But emotionally, I was wrecked. Not in a loud, sobbing way. In the silent, hollow way that sneaks up on you when you realize a part of your life has been rotten for years, and you simply didn't want to admit it. Then, around 10 in the morning, my phone started buzzing. First a call from my aunt, then a cousin, then an old friend I hadn't heard from in months. Sanaa checked her phone and went still. She posted something. My stomach turned. Sure enough, Myra had taken to Facebook, then Instagram, then LinkedIn of all places. She wrote a carefully worded post about being emotionally devastated because her own brother had withdrawn his financial support days before the wedding. She painted herself as a victim of greed, implied I had made a cruel promise, and backed out at the last second. She never named me, but she didn't have to. The implication was clear. The narrative was set. And the comments, well, people love a martyr. Within an hour, I had messages flooding in, some accusing, some pleading, some just confused. But the worst part, Amy commented on the post. A simple broken heart emoji, and you don't deserve this. We love you. That was it. No defense, no context, just a public stamp of approval on Myra's smear campaign. And right then, something inside me snapped. No more protecting them. No more playing nice. I was done. Sanaa looked at me from across the table and said, Ready? I nodded once. Let's show them who they're dealing with. I didn't speak to anyone in my family for 3 days. Not because I was sulking, and not because I wanted to punish them. I just didn't know what I'd say if I did. Every time I picked up my phone and scrolled through the dozens and hundreds of messages, my chest tightened like a vice. Friends, old classmates, distant cousins, a neighbor I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. All of them suddenly felt the need to weigh in. Some asked for my side of the story, though most didn't. They just assumed the worst. Because when a woman cries on social media and says her brother betrayed her days before her wedding, nobody thinks twice. They pick up their digital pitchforks and start swinging. I wasn't prepared for how lonely that felt. I thought I was. I've always been a little removed from my family. Not cold, just distant. I'm not the type to call every Sunday or send thinking of you messages, but I was there when it counted. I helped my parents with their taxes. I co-signed Myra's car loan years ago. I quietly paid off a small debt my uncle had, anonymously. I never asked for credit. I just did it, and none of it mattered. Not after Myra's post. That carefully worded, manipulative little essay about how she had been emotionally blindsided and financially abandoned by her only sibling. She never once mentioned the forged contract, or the lawyers, or the threat. She just played it like a drama gone wrong. The poor bride, the cruel brother, the heartbreak of a family torn apart by greed. And the worst part, my parents stood by it. Not one call from Abba. Amy posted another photo of Myra 2 days later. Caption, "My beautiful girl deserves the world. We've got your back." And I just sat there in my kitchen scrolling, not feeling angry anymore. Just numb. I didn't eat much that week. Sanaa tried gently to get me to talk. She didn't push, just made tea, left notes, sat with me in the quiet. But I could feel it, this low hum of something building inside me. Not rage. Not yet. Just a cold, heavy ache in my chest that kept whispering, "You're not part of this family anymore. Not really. And maybe you never were." On the 4th day, I went for a drive. Not anywhere in particular. I just got in the car and went. I think I ended up somewhere near the old park where Myra and I used to ride our bikes as children. The place where we built things in the mud and threw stones at the fence when we were bored. I sat there, stared at the empty ground, and wondered, when did she change? Or maybe, did I ever really know her at all? I thought about the way she used to cry when she got caught cheating at board games, how she'd always invent elaborate excuses, claiming she had meant to move 2 spaces instead of 1, and then pout until someone let her win anyway. And Amy always did. "It's just a game, Junaid. Let your sister feel special." I was 8 years old the first time I realized that in our house, Myra didn't need to follow the rules. She just needed to cry. And I didn't cry. I never did. That's when the rules changed. When I got home that evening, Sanaa was in the office printing something. She didn't say much, just handed me a manila folder and kissed my cheek. "Look through it when you're ready." I sat at the dining table for a long time, folder unopened, just listening to the distant hum of the printer still running. Eventually, I flipped it open. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was protection. Legal documentation, asset shielding, additional privacy locks on our financials, a new will, updated beneficiary lists, a corporate structure that would make it almost impossible for anyone to trace what we owned or how we owned it. Sanaa didn't just love me. She defended me silently and efficiently. While I was unraveling, she had been building a wall around our life, a quiet fortress. That night, I finally broke the silence. Over dinner, some pasta she had made that I barely tasted. I spoke. "I don't think I ever really had a sister," I said. Sanaa didn't say anything. She always made me feel small, like I was useful but not seen. "I know," she said gently. I nodded, and my parents just let it happen, over and over. I looked at her then. "Do you think that's my fault for not pushing back?" She reached across the table and took my hand. "You didn't fail them, Junaid. They failed you." That was the first time I cried in years. Not loud, not messy. I just sat there, head bowed, tears falling, while Sanaa held my hand. The next day, I woke up with a different kind of ache. Not the empty grief of being discarded. Something else. Resolve. I got dressed, made coffee, and sat down at my desk. I opened my laptop, pulled up old files I hadn't touched in a while. Contact sheets, ownership breakdowns, market assets. The spreadsheets and I called a fire list, a running document of people, businesses, and situations that had ever crossed us unfairly. Most have been dealt with quietly. A bad partner, a shady vendor, a man who tried to undercut me during a deal and ended up fined for insider trading. I scrolled to the bottom and added a new name, Myra Fatima Collins. Reason, personal betrayal, attempted extortion, family manipulation. Below it, I typed a note, do not engage emotionally, only strategically, because here's what Myra never understood. I never wanted power, but I learned how to wield it quietly, efficiently, from the shadows. While she begged for spotlights and applause, she thought that because I didn't flaunt it, I didn't have it. And now she was going to find out exactly what I had been building while she was trying on dresses and writing sob stories for Instagram. 2 nights later, I got an invitation in the mail, an actual printed envelope with gold trim and a fake wax seal. Myra's wedding invitation. The name was addressed to Mr. Junaid Collins and guest, financial contributor and brother of the bride. That wasn't a joke. That was actually written on the envelope. I stared at it for a long time. Sanaa walked up behind me, read it over my shoulder, and whispered, "Wow, she's bold." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd I couldn't do anything else. She's still pretending I'm paying for it. I muttered, "Yep." And she's invited me like this is all perfectly normal. Yep. I held the card up, stared at the words, then dropped it into the bin. Sanaa didn't say anything. We both knew that wasn't an invitation. It was a declaration. Myra was doubling down, still trying to control the narrative, still hoping I'd cave, show up, and smile for the cameras while pretending we were one big happy family. As I stood there looking at that bin, something inside me settled. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I wasn't going to plead my case to people who had no interest in hearing it. I was going to act, not out of rage, but out of clarity. Because I finally saw my family for what it was, a hierarchy, a performance, a set of unspoken rules where love was conditional and silence was expected. And I wasn't playing anymore. But first, I needed to have one final conversation, one final chance. So I called Abba. He picked up after 3 rings, sounding tired. Junaid. Hey. A long pause. This about the wedding? I ignored that. You busy? He sighed. Your mother's running errands. I've got an hour. I'll be there in 30. I hung up, and I knew that this was a moment. I would find out if anyone in that house had ever truly had my back. What I didn't know was that I was walking into the final betrayal. My parents' house hadn't changed. Same chip paint on the porch railing. Same wind chimes clinking by the screen door. Same faded mat that said welcome in a cheerful font that hadn't matched the energy inside that home in a very long time. But I noticed something new as I pulled into the driveway. Myra's car, parked perfectly in the center of the space, as though she owned the entire property. It was a white BMW. I knew it well because she complained about the monthly payments in the family group chat before she kicked me out of it. Shiny, loud, far too expensive. I stared at it a moment longer than I should have, then got out and headed up the steps. The door opened before I could even knock. Abba stood there, arms folded. He looked tired, not just physically, but worn. His eyes didn't light up. His face didn't crack into grin it used to when I came home to visit. He looked as though he didn't quite want me there. Hey, Abba. Hey. He stepped aside without a smile. Come in. I walked past him into the same living room I had grown up in. Same recliner, same wall clock, same framed photos of Myra everywhere. School portraits, dance recitals, a giant canvas print from her university graduation party that I had paid for and hadn't been invited to speak at. No photos of me. Not one. Where's Amy? I asked, not because I missed her, just because I want to know how many people I'd be up against a day. Downstairs, he said. She's making a gift basket for Myra's Mendy. You came at a bad time. I sat down anyway. I didn't come for her. I came for you. He lowered himself into the recliner across from me with a groan. You want chai or something? No, I said, then paused. Actually, yeah, if you're having one. He disappeared into the kitchen. I heard cupboards opening, the soft hum of the kettle beginning to warm. I sat and waited for him to return, waited for the words. I didn't even know how to start. When he returned with 2 mugs, he passed one to me and settled back into the recliner. No small talk, just silence. I hated how awkward it was, So I dove in. I need to ask you something, Abba. He looked at me over the rim of his mug. If the roles were reversed, if Myra was the one who got ambushed, threatened, manipulated into signing a fake contract, what would you have done? He didn't answer, so I kept going. Would you have told her to suck it up and stop being difficult? Or would you have burned the whole house down for her? Still nothing. I want to know why. That's it. Why you stood by her. Why you let Amy go along with that post. Why you haven't called me once since it all blew up. After everything I've done for this family. After all the things I never asked credit for. He set the mug down on the side table and leaned forward. Because you don't need us, he said. That floored me. What? You don't need us, he repeated, eyes tired but steady. You never have. You've always been fine on your own. Got yourself through university. Figured out your career. Built your own life. Never asked for help. Never complained. You just went your own way. I stared at him. He sighed. Myra needs us. She always has. She's not built like you, Junaid. She's fragile, emotional. When she falls apart completely. And your mother, she can't stand see that. So we pick up the pieces. That's how it's always been. I felt my chest tighten. So you enable her. You let her manipulate. You let her twist everything and lie and punish people. And you excuse it because she cries when she doesn't get what she wants. His voice hardened. You think parenting is black and white. You think it's just picking sides. I stood. No, I think parenting is doing what's right. Even when it's hard. Even when your favorite messes up. That made him wince. So I kept going. I didn't come here to beg for love. I came here to say goodbye. His eyes snapped up. What? I'm done, Abba. With all of it. The family gatherings, the fake holidays, the dinners where no one asks how I'm doing unless it's about taxes or wiring money. I'm out. He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. I'm not angry. I'm just free. I see it now. I've been auditioning for approval. That was never mine to earn. And I don't need it anymore. He looked as though he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just sat back and let me walk out. That was the day I stopped bleeding. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't slam any doors. Didn't scream or cry or demand apologies. I just left. And I started to live. Really live. No more forced calls. No more Eid gatherings where Myra made a speech and I handed her the check afterwards. No more being the ghost in the background of someone else's story. So nah. And I doubled down on our plans. We bought a second property in the hill stations, quiet and close to the mountains. She set up her own consulting firm. I invested in a startup that helps small business owners access affordable legal protection. And something about that just felt right. We built quietly, peacefully. But that didn't mean I forgot. It just meant I stopped letting them write the story. Myra's wedding came and went. We didn't attend, but I saw the photos. The guest list was packed with the kind of people who love being seen. Social media personalities, distant socialite cousins, college friends who were probably still paying off their last trip. I recognized a few faces. And I noticed one thing right away. No mention of me. Not one. Not even a lie. Just a race. But I knew what that meant. She was covering. Because her entire narrative, that her brother bailed at the last second and left her heartbroken, was built on me not showing up. If I had been there, if there had been a photo, even a whisper of our presence, her story would fall apart. So instead, she pretended I never existed, which honestly felt fair because now she didn't exist to me either. 3 weeks after the wedding, I received a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. It was Amy. Her voice was tight, cold, and practiced. Junaid, I don't know what kind of point you were trying to make by skipping the wedding, but your sister was humiliated. People asked questions. People whispered. She cried. She couldn't even enjoy her honeymoon. I hope you're happy. Don't bother calling back. That was the last message I ever received from her. And I never did call back. But here's the thing about walking away. You can only do it cleanly if you've tied up your own loose ends. So I spent the next few months making sure there were no strings left. I moved every last account into structures Myra couldn't sniff out, liquidated the trust she had mentioned, and restructured it into an entity with a board of 3, none of whom are blood-related. Sold off the holding company attached to my old family name. Started a new one, quiet, sleek, tightly controlled. Sanaa's firm flourished. She took on clients who had been burned by family business disputes, inheritance dramas, and prenuptial agreements gone wrong. Our reputation grew, not loudly, but respectably. People knew us, not because we announced ourselves, but because when we acted, it was final. Then, one day, about 6 months after the wedding, I received an email. Subject line, urgent help needed. It's Myra. I nearly deleted it without reading. Something made me open it. It was from Bilal, Myra's husband. I stared at the name for a long moment. We had barely spoken before. The man had always seemed like a placeholder with expensive shoes, but his message was short. Hey, Junaid. I don't know who else to ask. I know there's a lot of bad blood, and I'm sorry for that, but Myra's gotten us into something financially. It's big, and I think we're in serious trouble. Can you please call me? I didn't reply right away. I forwarded it to Sanaa. She read it, closed the screen, and said simply, "She's slipping." I nodded, not because I was glad, but because I knew that was the beginning of the unraveling. And this time, I wouldn't be the one to catch her. I didn't reply to Bilal's email for 3 days. Not out of pettiness. Not even to let him sweat. I just needed time to think. I needed to decide what kind of man I wanted to be. Because when someone betrays you publicly, deeply, and with every intention of making it hurt, it changes you. Not instantly, but like slow poison. You start asking yourself questions you never would have dared to ask before. What if I didn't forgive? What if I didn't walk away this time? What if I made them feel it? For months, I had told myself that walking away from Myra, from my parents, from the whole rotten family ecosystem, was a revenge, that living well, privately and securely, was its own kind of justice. And maybe it was for a while, but now they were bleeding. And they were coming back to me, not with apologies, not with humility, but with need. So I made a decision. I wouldn't ignore the email. I'd reply, not because I wanted to help, but because I wanted to see what happened when Myra realized that the person she tried to destroy held the last lifeline she would ever get. I waited until a Thursday evening, just past 7, then replied to Bilal with a single line. Let's meet tomorrow, 9 a.m., your office. Just you. I didn't tell Sanaa right away. She had a client call that night, and I didn't want to distract her. But when I woke up the next morning, I found a sticky note on my monitor. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. S. She always knew. Bilal's office was in a high-rise downtown. Nothing fancy, just a mid-tier suite in a shared workspace. When I arrived, the receptionist looked startled when I said his name, as though she wasn't used to people asking for him directly. He met me at the door himself, wearing the same panicked expression I remembered from the few family functions we had both suffered through. Junaid, he said, voice tight, trying too hard to sound casual. Thanks for coming. I didn't shake his hand. I just followed him in. He had cleared the room. No assistant, no refreshments, just a whiteboard covered in half-scrubbed numbers and a table with 2 chairs. I took the one closest to the door. He sat across from me, wringing his hands. I know this is awkward, he started, and I'm sure you have every reason to be done with us. With her, especially. But I really need your help, and I thought maybe you'd hear me out. I'm listening, I said, cold and controlled. He took a breath and started unraveling. Apparently, shortly after the wedding, Myra had launched a side business, some sort of wedding consultancy and influencer brand. She called it Elegance by Myra, which honestly sounded like the name of a henna stall at a market fair. But whatever, the plan was simple. She leveraged the supposed success of her own wedding, the one she had publicly implied I paid for, to launch a luxury planning service targeting brides with 6-figure budgets. She hired a PR firm, bought followers, rented a fake office for Instagram content, took on 3 clients, and made enormous promises she had no way of keeping. And then it got worse, because Myra didn't just overpromise. She collected deposits, large ones, and when her vendor contacts fell through, because she had never actually paid them, and when deadlines passed and refunds were demanded, she did what Myra always did. She blamed someone else. She told the clients I was handling the books, Bilal said, his voice breaking. She copied me on emails with fake spreadsheets I'd never seen. Used my name on invoices. I didn't know until 2 of the clients sent me legal threats. I didn't say anything. I just watched them. She opened a business account in both our names, he continued. Listed me as co-founder on the website. I didn't even know we had a website until last week. I leaned forward slightly. And now, she's gone, he said quietly. I blinked. Gone. He nodded. Vanished. Her phone's off. She drained the joint account, about $62,000. My name is on the paperwork. I'm liable. He looked up at me, desperate now. I know you don't owe me anything, but you know how she works. You know what she's capable of. I need help. Please. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, You married her. He looked as though I'd struck him. I know, he whispered. You had every opportunity to see who she was. I continued. You watched her lie to her clients, threaten her own brother, forge a contract, manipulate my mother, and you stayed. I thought she'd change. She never even pretended to. I said. He went quiet. I leaned back in my chair. I'm not bailing you out. I said. His face fell. But I'll give you something better. He blinked. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out a slim folder, and slid across the table. What's this? Her paper trail. I said, all of it. Every fake vendor account. Every shell transaction. Every identity she's used to file contracts. She left quite a mess when she tried to disappear. You just didn't know where to look. He opened it, started skimming, his eyes widening with every page. I have more, I added. Emails, IP logs, video evidence. A confidentiality agreement she forced one of her assistants to sign, then posted screenshots of the same conversation on Instagram, violating the terms herself. Bilal stared at the papers as though they were radioactive. You can take this to court, I said. Clear your name. Prove she committed fraud. You'll still take a hit. Your name is on too much. But you won't go to prison. His hands were trembling. Why are you doing this? He asked. And for the first time, I allowed myself to smile. Because I'm not like her. I stood. I don't want her life ruined. I just want honest. And with that, I walked out. The next day, Sanaa and I had breakfast at our favorite place, a small bakery that only opens before noon and doesn't advertise. We sat by the window watching the morning light spill across the street, sipping strong coffee and eating warm almond pastries. I gave Bilal the file. I told her. She didn't look surprised. How did it feel? Strangely good. Do you think he'll do the right thing? I shrugged. Doesn't matter. The right information is in the right hands now. If he buries it, that's on him. If he fights her, well, I'm not finished helping yet. She smiled, brushing a crumb from my sleeve. So it begins. Not yet, I said. This is still the setup. She raised an eyebrow. And what's the play? I leaned in. She stole $60,000 from 3 clients. That's traceable. I gave Bilal enough to cover himself, but not enough to chase her. Not yet. You're baiting her, Sanaa said. She needs money, I replied. She's arrogant, desperate, and out of options. Eventually she'll come back for more. She always does. That's when I'll know where she is. And once you do, I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. Sanaa just reached across the table and touched my hand. And in that moment, I knew when Myra came knocking this time, I wouldn't just be ready. I'd be waiting, with receipts, with leverage, and with the kind of quiet power she never saw coming. It took 4 months. 4 months of silence, of waiting, of pretending to move on while knowing deep in my gut that Myra wasn't gone. People like her don't disappear. They retreat. They regroup. And when they come back, they do it with a new mask, a new story, and just enough manufactured vulnerability to make people forget how dangerous they really are. I didn't need to chase her. I just needed to wait. And sure enough, one evening in late spring, while Sanaa and I were cooking dinner in our mountain home, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, arched an eyebrow, and handed it to me. Blocked number. No caller ID. But the voicemail, it was unmistakably Myra. Hey, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I'm in a weird place right now, and I'm trying to fix things. I know we left things messy, but I think we should talk. You're still my brother, and I miss you. I hope you're okay. Call me back. Please. Sanaa muted the speaker. She's fishing. She's broke. I said calmly, stirring the pasta. She's run out of bridges to burn. We didn't reply. Not yet. But that night, I sat at my desk and pulled up a file I hadn't touched in months. Myra_3 I opened it, reviewed every line, confirmed every contact was still valid. And when I finished, I sent one email, just one, to a friend named Layla. Layla works in compliance at a well-known event venue chain, the kind that caters to high-end weddings, galas, and fundraisers. We had helped her once when she got caught up in a bad deal through her ex-fiancé. Sanaa handled the legal side. I managed the financial cleanup. Layla owed us, and she pays her debts. The very next day, Myra reappeared online. Subtle at first, a fresh Instagram post, a grainy sunset, a vague caption. Life is about rebuilding, not regretting. Then a new Facebook page, Morgan Collins Events. Oh, wait, she was going by a new name now. Gold script logo, luxury, wedding planning with heart. No mention of elegance by Myra. That name was dead. This was a rebrand. She even registered a new business in a private registry with no listed address. Clever, but not clever enough. Because within a week, her real identity started bleeding through. Client tags, hashtags, photos with her face, her voice and stories. Testimonials that were all curated, all fabricated. But I didn't stop her. Not yet. I let it grow. Watched as she rebuilt the illusion. 3 new clients, 2 venue partnerships, a fake pop-up workshop where she charged 1,000 rupees per ticket and posted the same photo from 3 angles to make it look fully attended. All performance. All mask until she made her first mistake. She applied to host an exclusive bridal expo at a venue owned by a holding company I partially controlled through 3 layers of legal insulation. The name on her application, Myra Bright. New surname. No mention of her LLC's history. No mention of her previous scandal. Just a polished pitch deck full of stock quotes and false revenue claims. Layla flagged it immediately. We approved the application and scheduled a date. Because this time, I wanted the stage set perfectly. The expo was a sleek affair. Ambient music. String lights across a vaulted ceiling. Dozens of vendors lined along the walls with brochures and samples. And in the center, Myra, wearing a crisp white blazer, hair in soft curls, her voice hitting every rehearsed note of polished confidence. Sanaa and I didn't go. We didn't need to. Instead, we had someone else attend. Her name was Tori, a real bride, a real client, one of Myra's real victims, the woman who had quietly emailed me after the wedding business collapsed, saying Myra had vanished with her deposit and blocked her after promising a full luxury package. Sanaa had worked with her behind the scenes, helped her recover a partial refund from the venue that had since blacklisted Myra. And when we asked whether she'd be willing to show up and ask a few questions, Tori didn't hesitate. She brought a friend with a small camera, nothing obvious, just a lapel mic and a clip-on lens hidden inside a handbag. The confrontation wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and professional. Tori walked up to Myra's booth, smiled politely, and said, "Hi, I'm Tori. I think we worked together last year." Myra blinked, hesitated, then smiled as though nothing had happened. "Oh, right, Tori. So good to see you again." Tori nodded. "Yeah, I was just wondering whatever happened to elegance by Myra. That's what the invoice said." Myra froze, just for a second. "Oh, I rebranded," she said, waving it off. "New direction. And the deposits you collected?" Tori asked, "Did those rebrand too?" People nearby began to listen. Just 1 or 2. Enough. Myra stiffened. "I'm sorry, what is this?" Tori smiled. "Just making conversation. Or should we continue it somewhere else?" Myra took a step back, then turned and walked. Not fast, not loudly, just slipped behind a curtain and vanished. Tori didn't follow. She didn't need to. By then, the mic had done its job. The footage made its way to 3 small industry blogs within a week. No accusations, no threats, just a quiet article titled, "Why are so many brides still missing refunds from Myra Collins?" The post linked to receipts, contracts, dates, photos, LLC registrations, and voicemails. No commentary, just facts. And people started talking. Vendors pulled their contracts. Clients canceled bookings. Venues flagged her name in their systems. And then came the significant one. A bridal magazine that featured her in a top 10 planners to watch spread issued a quiet retraction. No drama, just a small note. Correction. We are no longer affiliated with Myra Collins or Myra Bride Events. And Myra vanished again. This time for good. But that wasn't the real ending. That was just cleanup. The real ending was quieter. A month after the expo collapsed, I flew back to the city for a board meeting. On the way out of the hotel, I passed a woman in the lobby. Sweatpants, hoodie, phone pressed to her face, pacing, whisper screaming into the receiver. It took me a second to recognize her. Myra, pale, hair pulled back. No makeup, no audience. I didn't stop walking, but I slowed just enough to catch one line. "I don't have the money, okay? I'm trying. I just need more time." I kept going. Didn't turn. Didn't look back. Because that was the moment I knew it was done. She would never recover. Not fully. Not in the same world she had once ruled with filters, lies, and forged documents. Her reputation wasn't ruined by scandal. It was erased. There was no one left to clap, no one left to believe her, and the silence was louder than any courtroom. Later that week, Sanaa and I sat on the balcony of our mountain home. The air was cool. The sky was clear. Our phones were off. I told her about the hotel. She didn't say anything at first, just sipped her tea. Then she asked, "Do you feel better?" I thought about it, took a breath, and said, "No, I feel clean." Fallout never happens in one explosion. It happens in echoes, tiny creeping aftershocks that travel through everything you thought was stable, reshaping it piece by piece until the old version of your world is gone for good. For me, it began with a phone call. Not from Myra, not from my parents, from a lawyer, a young man with a calm voice who introduced himself as representing Bilal in a joint civil proceeding. "We're filing a case against Myra Collins," he said, "under her legal name. You've been listed as a potential witness for the defense. Given your previous experience with her conduct, would you be open to speaking with us?" I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the mountains. Has she been served? He hesitated. She has. 3 counts of fraud, 2 of breach of contract, 1 of misrepresentation. There's talk of a possible criminal referral, depending on how discovery goes. My throat felt dry, but my voice stayed level. You'll have my cooperation. It's strange how justice moves. Not with drama, not with fireworks, just quiet paperwork. By the time I gave my deposition, Myra had already been dropped by every vendor association she had ever joined. The wedding planning world is small, and reputation spreads faster than truth. Even those who had once defended her, it's all a misunderstanding. She's been through a lot. Eventually went silent. Her clients were less forgiving. 2 filed small claim suits. 1 went public on social media. That clip found its way to a consumer rights page with over 1 million followers. It was brutal. Not because it was cruel, but because it was undeniable. Receipts, contracts, messages, timelines. Sanaa and I watched from our living room one evening as it played. The creator ended with, "When you build your life on lies, the bill always comes due." The clip reached 3 million views. Myra deleted all her accounts 2 days later. Bilal called me a week after the deposition. "It's done," he said quietly. "How bad?" She settled. "No criminal charges, but she's broke. She had to sell the car, the jewelry, everything. She's moved back in with your parents. They co-signed an agreement to keep her out of court." I let the silence stretch. "And you?" "I'm free," he said, his voice shaking a little. "Divorce was finalized last week. I can finally sleep." "Good," I said. "Start over." He exhaled slowly. "You know, I used to think she was just misunderstood, that she was acting out because of her upbringing or the pressure, but she's like a magnet for chaos. She doesn't survive unless someone else pays the bill." Yeah, I said quietly. I know. He hesitated. Do you ever think she'll change? I thought about it for a long moment. No, I said, but I think we finally did. The next wave came from my parents. It started with an email from Amy, written in that clipped, polite tone she uses when she's embarrassed but won't admit it. Junaid, I know things have been tense. Your father and I are trying to help your sister through a difficult time. She's made mistakes, but she's still family. We'd like to talk, if you're open to it. No apology, no acknowledgement, just expectation. Sanaa read it over my shoulder and said, You don't owe them closure. I know, but I replied anyway. I hope you and Ab are well. I wish you peace. But I'm done trying to fix something that never saw me as family unless I was useful. Take care. That was it. No anger. No argument. Just the truth. A week later, Amy sent one more message. We'll respect your decision. I hope someday we can start again. That someday never came. And I didn't wait for it. 6 months later, life looked different. Sanaa's firm had grown into a full-fledged consultancy. She hired 2 assistants, began speaking at conferences, and landed a feature in a business publication, a spread titled The Women Fixing What Greed Breaks. I invested in 3 new ventures. One was a legal tech startup that helped automate fraud reporting for small business owners. I didn't announce anything publicly, didn't post a single update, just worked quietly. Sometimes success doesn't roar. It hums. Steady, strong, certain. The last time I saw Myra was almost a year later. I had flown back to the city for a board meeting and stopped at a grocery store on the way to the hotel. I turned a corner and there she was, alone, no makeup, in an old camise that hung off her like a memory of a better time. She didn't see me at first. She was arguing with a cashier about a declined card, her voice sharp and desperate, but not powerful anymore. I stood there for a moment, watching. In that moment, I felt no joy, no pity, no anger. I just felt done. She looked up. For a flicker, our eyes met. Her expression shifted, shock, then something else. Shame, maybe, or recognition. She opened her mouth as though she wanted to say something. I simply nodded once. Not coldly, not kindly, just a nod, and I walked away. That was the last time I ever saw her. I never heard from my parents again either. No calls, no cards, no messages. And that was all right, because sometimes peace isn't about fixing things. It's about finally being fine with the silence that comes after. Years later, I sat on our back porch with Sanaa, watching the sun dip behind the ridge. We had built a life far from the noise, a quiet, steady rhythm of work, laughter, and small, meaningful moments. She looked up from her book and said, You never told me what you said to her that day at the grocery store. I smiled. That's because I didn't say anything. She tilted her head. Would you have? I thought about it. Maybe once, I said, but not anymore. Some people mistake forgiveness for weakness. It's not. It's freedom. You just have to stop giving them space to live inside your head. She smiled softly. So, what do you call what you did then, all of that? I took a long sip of my coffee, let the wind move through the trees, and said, Accountability. She laughed quietly. And do you think she ever learned? I stared out at the horizon, the light fading, the mountains painted gold, and shook my head. No, but that was never the point. The point was I finally did. A few weeks later, a letter arrived at our office address. No return name, just a familiar handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Inside was a single page. I'm sorry. I never realized how much you carried for all of us until it was gone. I hope you are happy. Amy. No mention of Myra. No request to reconnect. Just that. And somehow that was enough. I folded the paper carefully, slipped it into my desk drawer, and didn't respond. Because sometimes closure isn't conversation. It's a decision. That night, I sat on the porch again, the stars stretching wide across the sky, the air thin and still. Sanaa joined me, resting her head on my shoulder. Do you ever miss them? She asked. I thought for a moment. Sometimes, I said, but then I remember I didn't lose them. I finally saw them. And for the first time in my life, that truth didn't sting. It felt like peace. Real solid, unshakable peace. I turned to Sanaa, kissed her temple, and whispered the last thing I would ever say about any of it. A quiet truth that had been years in the making. The only ending that ever truly mattered. They taught me everything I needed to know about loyalty by breaking it. And with that, I finally let the past go.